We'll go ahead and get started and call meeting to order as of 3 p.m. We'll start off with the pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a quorum. Consent agenda. Is there anything hold or further discussed? Otherwise, we just move.
I had no changes. Steve,
I had no changes.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Passes on. Final break. What's that? Oh. All right, does anybody have any public comment? Okay. Who do you see? Department head reports. Township assistant. You're Brett, yeah. I'm kidding.
You see the township assistant numbers in the report. There is one addition that we got from Stephanie sent over to us that she found on Facebook, where there was a conversation going on about Becky, who of course manages our township assistants, and there were more than one individual on Facebook that was very complimentary of her and the work that she does for us. So that's always great when you can stumble across something like that out in the wild, to hear that. We know our employees are doing a great job, but to see that others are recognizing that and having that in open dialogue online is a good thing to find as well. So kudos to Becky, and thanks for Stephanie for capturing that and sending that over to us as well. But outside of that, unless there's specific questions, I don't have anything else for public assistance.
On the numbers on the bottom, I'm not sure what it's. April is April, obviously. But percent of year to date, is that percent of 22 in entirety? I just don't understand the comparative numbers. It's not.
On that particular chart, I would have to get clarification, get back to you on that one.
That's really.
Yep.
They either need to change.
We'll spell that out better.
The labeling a little bit better. What are we comparing it to? That kind of thing.
Yep.
So. Yeah, I don't have any doubt that she's doing a good job. It's just for the sake of
absolutely
posterity, knowing what those numbers are compared to.
Okay, human resources.
Good afternoon. You have my report in front of you. I left in the comparison to the township still. I'll probably keep that in there for a while, change it maybe once a year or so that we can just make sure we're keeping up with the trends of the township. We had 4 new lateral firefighters start with us in the month of April. We have hired a total of 95 staff members for Murphy Park and 55 for our summer camps. And at the beginning of July, we will start hiring for our extended care. Any questions? Been a busy month and last couple of weeks hiring. So trying to get all that finished up.
Awesome, thank you. Parks.
All right. So it's been very busy with the Parks Department. As I put in my report, we have all of our approvals from the Health Department. So both pools have been approved and also our concession stand has been approved. We've been doing a lot of staff trainings as of recently for our camp program and then also at Murphy Aquatic Park. For youth services, we've got our Lily Camp and our Explorer Camp starting here soon. We've been doing a lot of staff training for both of those camps, and then also going out to the Lily site a few times as well, just to make sure that we're acclimated with everything. And then next, I wanted to mention our programmers. They have a lot of really fun programs coming up. They're not just doing the same old programs all the time. They have a lot of new ideas coming up as well. We're really trying to hit on every age demographic, every need. But something great that our programmers have started to do is they are starting to work on a lot more inclusive programs and adaptive programs. So instead of just having our regular homeschool programs, we also have an adaptive homeschool program as well. And then we've been starting what is called a social connections club, and that's for adults that have special needs and abilities for them to kind of meet, get together, and make friends. So you can see we have a lot of things coming up in the month of May. And then you can see our revenue report. We're trending very well on our revenue report. You'll see the camp. It is above what it was last year, but that will continue to increase. Whereas before, in past years, when we just had rec desk, all of the money the majority of the money for camp and our youth services will come right away. The software that we have now gives parents the option to be able to pay to secure their spot and then pay a little bit later as the weeks come up. So you'll see a steady stream in those summer months. It won't just all come in one large chunk. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that in the revenue report. Any questions?
I do have one question on that, because we've got several different independent camps, two new, being new. The camp registration, it looks like it's all on one line.
Yes.
Is there any option to split that out in this report?
I can do my best. It's kind of challenging to split it out, but I can see what I can do about breaking up those.
Just for the sake of trying to set up, the two new ones and the existing, just to give us some comparatives.
Yes.
As we move forward.
I can work on breaking out the Lily camp and then the Explorer camps that we do at the park, and then I can do youth services on a different line as well. And that would be the Explorer Extended Care.
Whatever is the best way for you to analyze it and say make a informed decision of yes, it was worthwhile, no, it wasn't.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
I'm with Steve. Yeah, at year end, it would be nice to have a P&L for every single different camp, just so that you can analyze each one. Right? Yeah, is it worth it? Do we continue? That sort of thing. And for those that cannot see these revenue numbers, so year to date 2022 versus year to date now, camp registration is up like $90,000. So significant. So that's a testament to the hard work that your team has put in, and great job.
Thank you.
The park event fees, is that a matter of timing? We're up substantially, all of it almost entirely being in April. Is that just timing, or?
So that's our programmers. That's the revenue that our programmers generate. And the adult Easter egg hunt, our kegs and eggs, brought in around $20,000. So that's why that is a
Okay, so that's just some new events happening early. So timing isn't going to swing back and pendulum the other direction on that.
Nope, it's just going to keep going. They have a lot more planned.
Good. Excellent.
Anything else?
Yeah, thank you. Fire.
Good afternoon. All right, you have my report in front of you. A couple things I want to bring up. One is from last month that I didn't bring up. We had a run that went out to the St. Vincent's Medical Center on 36. The resident that affected lives out on the west end of our coverage area. Had hit us up and said that our crew that responded helped prevent their spouse from having what they would consider a widowmaker heart attack. They will take them from there to IU Health, immediately get them in and have them stented. Came back and they went by the crew. It was 142's A shift. Those guys know where they're at. 142's A shift. So anyway, highly complimentary. To go along with that, had a call, went out to Avon Middle School East. Says a nurse called an ambulance. I need to go to the hospital for several reasons. Star and Robus were absolutely exceptional. Appreciate the medical support, compassion, concern, and extra attention that I needed that day. I just lost my husband February 22. So anyway, they've been under a lot of stress. had need, like the compassion of whatever was going on with their medical condition. Again, a big testament to the people responding to runs, right? That's what I tell everybody is we're here to support the people that support the people. And this is the expectation we have. But whenever people go above and beyond and get recognized, we really appreciate that. As you go through the report, HR stated that, actually stated we just hired 4 new people. Within that hiring, you'll see Preston Aspaslet listed at the bottom of the first page there. Preston came to us from Lebanon Fire. We appointed him to the Division Chief of Fire Training. We talk about when people leave and justifying why they left, good or bad, and given the reasons. I will tell you that when Preston used to work here, he's coming back to Avon. He left in 2020, willing to come back. As soon as he came back, we started talking about our hiring process that I've mentioned a few times going into 2024. The chief of Lebanon hit him up most recently. He's only been there for a few weeks now. So he hit him up and said, hey, we wouldn't mind considering joining up with your recruit class. So the place he left, he still left on good terms, right? So we're trying to bring people in that are solid and not running from anything, and make sure that they're a huge asset for us and our people as well. So again, Preston's a great guy. A lot of our people were asking if we could get him in the lateral process. That kind of opened an eye. I didn't know him prior to. Brought his name up in the office with our staff and just kind of had a, why not? He's qualified. Let's do this and see what happens. He was interested and came over. So not to discount Mr. Craven, Smith, and Templeton. They're out right now acclimating to crews. We're glad to have them, both from Terre Haute and Danville there in that group of 3. They're so far blending well with our crews, outdoor extrication training, fire training, and EMS training, and taking their turns on the medic and the ladder and the engines. Whenever we move into fire prevention, that would be on the second page there. Understand he had brought in $839 in claim review fees. Year to date, we brought in nearly $30,000 in that division. Levi and Tom continue to perform in that area. We've identified, whenever we talk about underserved areas of a coverage area, fire prevention is an underserved area for us as well. And as we try to legitimize that area more and more with some things that we have that will be in front of you today, those guys continue to grind and continue to work. And know that back in 2005, we had a fire marshal, 2 investigators of public education. Today, we have Levi and Tom, a fire marshal and an inspector investigator. And then on the pub ed front, that kind of moved out on its own. We're going to revamp that whole area and try to get back to 0 there so we can better serve the community, because we know what's happened between 2005 and now, right? There's construction everywhere and continue to grow. We've put them behind the 8 ball. So we're in part of our 5-year plan and our current budget. We're looking to revamp that area altogether, along with some others. But they continue to do good work, and we appreciate that. As far as runs, we are plus 211 runs from 2022. Our engine and ladders continue to have between 400 and 600 run load on them. Whenever you look at our medics, you can see some disparity between medic 143 and the rest. But again, 141, 142, and 144 between that 400 and 600 mark. Again, it's just how we better utilize our resources. And I think as we move forward and expand our department and put in a Station 5 and look at our coverage area and our responses and how we allocate our resources within the 5 stations in the future, that'll help balance that out. And that's the idea. That's the ideal way that we should operate. Amongst the shifts, we're all in the 800 range as far as runs go. So of the total amount of 2,484 runs, they're all between 800 and 900 apiece. So that's all I have there. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, trustee report.
As you can see in my report, we have been notified by the State Board of Accounts that we are on their radar for our annual audit. If you are familiar with that process, there is a great deal of prep work that goes into getting ready for that audit. And so I put on that second little paragraph that I've got there. Definitely kudos go out to Britt for that. She has gone through line by line on every one of those documents that State Board of Accounts sends over to us to make sure that all of our numbers are 100% accurate. And with that, we anticipate no no hurdles, no issues when that audit comes. So I'm actually looking forward to that. This, of course, being my first audit. I look forward to going through that process, learning more about what the State Board of Accounts is looking for from them directly. So yeah, I am looking forward to that. We don't have the exact date of when that's going to be, but they were aware that Britt was out on vacation this week, and they assured me that they weren't just going to randomly show up while she was gone. So don't expect them this week, but they could, it could be as early as next week. They might give us advance notice, they might not. But that is coming, and I'll, of course, follow back up with you once that happens as well. We're continuing to work on our strategic plan. We have all met a number of occasions for some group sessions to discuss where we think we should be as the township. We're getting to the point now where we're breaking out to the individual departments where they can talk more specifically for their department individually. And so that's going to continue going on. We're going to follow up again this following Monday. We've got some, not necessarily homework that's due, but the tasks that have been given out to the individual department heads, that's going to be coming up. And then we'll be meeting again after that to try to put everything back together, all of these pieces that we've been working on to come up with a good final product. Also talking here about FDIC. That was last month, largest fire department conference in the world, which is awesome for the city of Indianapolis to host that every year. It is awesome for our fire department and our neighboring fire departments as well, because we all benefit a great deal from that. As I pointed out in there, I was down there all week. I did see a number of our members that were coming and going to different classes, going to different exhibits, talking to different vendors that are out there, looking at new equipment and new technology that's out there. And that's exactly what we want from our membership, is to get out there and to find out if there's something better, something that we should be considering, then bring that back and take that up through the administration and see if there's a new best practice, something that we should be looking at. Steve, thank you. I know you had the opportunity to come out one of the days. A lot of walking around that day, certainly through the entire convention center and then down into Lucas Oil Stadium. There's no shortage of things to look at. So we appreciate you being able to make it down there. And in the future, if any of the other board members or Steve again want to go to that, that's definitely a worthwhile event to go down there and take some of that in. The last item that I have to talk about is the Christmas in June Live. Spell check did not like that at all. Each time that I typed in June Live, it was going to be, of course, the Christmas in July event, but looking at dates and finding out what worked, it was actually the end of June was the best date that we came up with. But this was the social events committee, actually, that we're calling that, or as I refer to, the party planning committee, if you're familiar with the TV show Office. But that group has been working on some different ideas, some different things that we might be able to do to celebrate the staff that we have here and to try to get everybody together. And with Murphy Aquatic Park being available to us, this is an opportunity where we can have a family event where we can, it's not just the employees coming out for a nice night out, but you can bring your entire family. And hopefully this new event is well attended. And, we'd like to think that this could be a new annual tradition for us.
Do you have a date for that? There's no date on here.
It's June 30th.
Thank you.
You should have got an email from me with the invite, if not.
Got it.
And that's all I've got for you.
Question on the strategic plan. Are you guys asking for any outside input? Or we talk about that?
We haven't, no. At this point, it's just been talking about what we feel are the important areas for us as the township leadership to focus on.
Okay.
And that's why, again, that's those group sessions. We talk overall, the larger umbrella of the township, and then now breaking it down to the individual departments, because what's maybe more important to Britt or I or Ashley might not necessarily be the exact same thing that fire is looking at, or certainly maybe not the exact same thing that Parks is looking at. So again, trying to break it down into individual groups so they can get those finer details, and then circling that back into try to incorporate that together.
Do you have a goal when you're going to be able to present that to
I would imagine that we're going to be buttoning things up by the end of this month, if not the first half of next month. So we should be available, I would like to think, after that. So unless any of my department heads are frantically shaking their heads out there, Laura may not be quite as convinced that I am, but we'll see what we can come up with. But
My question is just being able to digest it before we start the budgeting process, so we can get on the same page as far as where you're coming from.
Yep.
When we start looking at the numbers.
Yep, understand and completely agree with that. And that's we're shooting for soon, but I can't give you an exact date yet.
That's fair enough.
Any other questions? Okay. Up next, old business. Got a couple items there for township transportation. Then
I am happy to report for the township transportation that we have a driver that is agreed to come and work. It is Mike from the Legion. He's stepping down as Legion commander, and he's been talking with Marina, and he thinks that this is something that he's gonna want to do. So he's gonna start the first of next month to do some training and ride around with some of the other drivers to get acclimated to the process. And then as soon as the van is available, then he'll be ready to go for us. On that front, we did just have somebody out measuring the van here at between, what did we meet, 3 weeks ago, I guess, and now. So we did have somebody come out and actually get some finer measurements on the van. So I know that they are working on those graphics, and I'd like to think that we're going to have hopefully a finished product real soon for that as well. So good news on a project that seems like it stalled for a little bit, but we are back on track, and having the driver, getting a driver locked in was definitely a big step in the right direction. I know Marina's still looking for to have a second driver lined up as well. Of course, understanding that the primary driver won't always be available, and so again, she's still working on that, but a big step one to get that going for us. So.
Mike's a great guy too.
Absolutely. The map pedestrian crossing is the next item on here. If you're sorry, I guess you're supposed to read that part, not me.
Go ahead.
The map pedestrian crossing is the next one on the agenda here. And so as I mentioned at our last meeting, we have had some struggles with some of the previous vendors that we worked with. We're no longer interested in rebidding this project. Due to what they felt were some ongoing changes. Recently, Shane and I did have an opportunity to go meet with Ryan Cannon at Town Hall to have a discussion about this and to try to come up with, we need resolution. And so the update that I've got for you and the plan that we're currently working is the town has agreed to help us try to track down some vendors who can do the project. They feel they're going to be able to get some of the vendors that they use, and hopefully will bring us a substantial savings in comparison to some of the quotes that we were getting from the vendors before. And so obviously, if we can make that happen, then that would certainly be great news. Obviously, this has been a long and ongoing kind of thorn in our side that we've all wanted resolution for, and the town included, of course. And if we can come up with something that we, would consider acceptable on the financial side of it, and obviously it meets their needs as far as the standard for that crossing, then that's going to be a win-win. So we certainly appreciate Ryan's willingness to have Steve help us out in that, and hopefully by the time we meet again, we'll have even more progress on where it's going from there. So.
No, do you have anything else to add to that? Haven't been meeting?
I would say there's been just a lot. It seems like a lot of confusion around it, is what I would say. I push back as to why they approved something and didn't approve something. It kind of gets a little bit, their view is that what they approved is not what was built, and that punch list, if you will, they indicated that it was not correct then, but yet it moved forward, and it should have been addressed at that point. So, that being said, I don't know that, I wasn't there, wasn't part of that punch list process, so, and Ryan wasn't either, and I don't know who had those conversations. Yeah.
Okay.
So ultimately, that's on us and the construction company and the management company and whatnot. So to go back now, we're a year out from that being pretty much done. I think it's going to be a challenge. They're going to get us a discount. I think lesson learned is everything on that punch list is confirmed. We will physically have the town of Avon or the county or whomever is approving that on any project we do to say, yeah, we're signing off on this. This is correct next time. So, because we really didn't hear anything about it. I didn't think about it until people started hitting it. And they're like, it shouldn't have been had a blunt curb, but you say that. If you guys drive down 36, there's a whole lot of blunt curbs on 36 that are about 7 feet tall. Not 7 feet, but
There's
somebody's gonna know if they're gonna hit it. I'm pretty confident they're not gonna pour, they're not gonna put that much asphalt back down. So that would be about 12 inches of it. So, yeah, I think that's our lesson learned is that they come out and sign off on it. They just have a very different view of the situation than we do when you say.
Yeah.
So hopefully they will get ours are coming in around 100, 130. Hopefully they will come in 30, 50, something like that. So they can kind of roll it into other projects that are being done throughout the year.
And that's keeping us from getting our occupancy, correct?
Correct.
And that was extended.
Yes,
The
I was
CFO
able
was
to get-
extended to what, 6 months?
6 months. Yeah, I was able to get, after this meeting, the temporary CFO has been extended for another 6 months for us, which will get us through this construction season. I really, really hope that we've got final resolution well before that 6 months is
Yeah.
gone.
Once it's decided, again, I mean, they believe it'll be a day, maybe two. It'll shut down that road. They want to shut down the road to make it happen. Make it happen more quickly. So go through all their plans around that. But that's kind of the thought.
If the road is shut down, is there another way into Murphy Park?
I would think, again, we didn't go into the details of operationalizing all of it. I think that's part of the quote when somebody comes through and quotes that, is that it would just be that section so they could get to AJA fields, and then on the south end of that, or north end of that, they could get to Murphy. You'd have to get to Murphy by the north end, not the south end.
Essentially, the road would be closed to through traffic.
Right.
Okay.
But we
I just wanna
didn't,
make
we didn't
sure
get
we're
into those details with them.
Losing out on a day of revenue.
Well, that
The
was,
discussion that Laura and I have already had as well, so.
I see the face.
no, I know. There may or may not have been a discussion with walk out, hey, you need to prepare someone. I didn't say names, but, yeah, that was, we'll know more once we get there. And they may want to do it later on. I mean, if we can get it to 6 months and maybe they do it kind of in the fall, at this point, it's been the way it's been for however long. And they had issue with the flashing lights and it was, I don't know, but they're also getting a trail up to that point too. So, I don't know if that is anything.
No. Covered.
They'll just be loud and stuff. So, okay. The other part on there, I added that back on, and I was delayed in getting the stuff to everybody. Communities of Excellence, and I don't know, Amanda, you've seen it as well. Just before the next meeting we have, if everybody can kind of review that from the department head standpoint, and get it to the board as well. Just to see what people think. I think it's a good discussion to start on ways to kind of focus on the whole community and maybe be a little more collaborative. So it's a vehicle to do that. But that's all I have on that. New business, Hendricks County Icon.
So, Jeff, can you speak on this better than I can?
My understanding that Amanda has purchased an interest in the Hendricks County Icon, and that we have in the past paid for advertising in the Icon, and the floor for having a conflict of interest in the state of Indiana is $250. And so, in an abundance of caution, I'm recommending that the board evaluate a standardized uniform conflict of interest form. I reviewed it, it looks fine. Well, the two of you want to review it, I think you probably ought to abstain. That would probably be for the best. And then, if approved, which I presume it will be, we'll give a copy to the clerk of courts and the state board of accounts, and that will cover any perceived conflicts. And then I also know that Laura will probably want to be doing some advertising, future programming in the icon, so then we'll be free and clear on all of that. So I'm doing this more as a protective measure, because as a board member, you don't really have a means to direct the contract one way or another. But I also don't want anyone coming from the outside in going, oh, hey, look, you sat there passively while others were allowed to do it. So I think in the interest of transparency, and we just have it out there. We're discussing it, happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, it takes a motion and an approval, and then we'll distribute it to the two places that get it.
I guess I just want to add, as Ryan and I were discussing before, nothing has changed versus what we've done in the past. So just to have that on public record, so continuing business as usual. The only thing that was changed.
Right. And that changed after the election, or is that right?
Correct, yes.
So we need to approve this? What do we need to do?
I think you need a motion and a second to accept
Okay.
the conflict disclosure, and then leave it with the trustee, and then we'll get it to the two places it needs to go. We don't need a resolution, but I like the minutes to reflect that it was discussed and that there's been.
I move that we adopt the statement of conflict of interest as submitted.
I will second that. You want
I will
to
abstain.
abstain? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Very good. I'll get this to you at some point. Here. All right.
Ryan, can I get a copy of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then number 2, I have a resolution for surplus property.
These are our old igloos that we aren't using anymore. Like the surplus, and then we have 2 different parts to our
Giving them or selling?
giving them their dirty.
Okay.
These are the original ones they had. in the
I've got a
apple park.
picture right here for you.
Oh.
Oh, there you go.
And they either don't fit or we got different,
We have new ones.
we got new ones. Are they smaller?
No.
Okay. I'm trying to remember these from.
These are the inflatable ones. The other ones are more of a like a metal structure, and then we have 2 clear ones and 1 all white igloo.
You want one?
Yeah.
Emergency preparedness or anything? Okay.
All right, I will make a motion to approve resolution number 051623-01, declaring surplus equipment.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was just thinking I would never imagined approving a surplus of any central Indiana.
Just let it melt.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Where are we at? Next up is a resolution to reestablish rate for the cumulative firefighting building and equipment fund.
Yes, so historically, the cumulative funds, they recede over time. And different districts will periodically, every few years or so, renew those funds to get them back to the rate where they need them to be. There is new legislation in place now that eliminates that receiving process. So what we're looking for today is we would like to reestablish the rate to its max rate, and theoretically, until the state changes the rules again, we should not have to mess with this again, because that rate is going to be locked in with this establishment. Our current rate, we're at a 0.0317. We're asking today to bring the rate to the 0.033, which is a total increase of 0.0013. So just barely a tenth of a cent is the increase that we're looking for there as far as the tax rate goes. If Chief Brock, if you want to talk about the cumulative fund, I know we've had conversations individually about that fund, what some of the needs are. Obviously, we're looking vehicles and equipment is the area that we're talking about, and I know you had some points for that as well.
Yeah, as we move forward, we've entered into some agreements with ladder 144, engine 142, and engine 143 replacements. We are going to begin talks later this year for replacement of ladder 141, which is approaching 80,000 miles on it. We've had most recently, probably the biggest thing we've had happen is leaf spring coming off, which ends up being a small point of contention and humor because no one was hurt, but we had a passerby just sitting around and say, hey, I'm just spring in the road. It's kind of a big deal whenever you have a 50 to 70,000 pound vehicle going down the road. With that said, those leases, just on the ladders alone, something we have to put in perspective. Letting this fund trend down, today's costs on things, and I was able to take Steve to FDIC and meet some of our vendors and understand some of this directly from them. A medic now costs about what an engine cost just a few years ago. An engine now costs about what a ladder used to cost. And a ladder costs about what a firehouse used to cost to build. We're looking at over $2 million for a ladder, approaching $800,000 to $1 million for an engine, and about $400,000 for a medic. With that said, those 4 units in place, we don't carry a high reserve. My last discussion with Grid showed that we have a running balance of about $500,000 in the queue fund. That doesn't buy any of those units aside from a medic truck, and then that's gone because we try to run sub 5% surplus to zero on our budget, right? We want to get between that 3 and 5% or better, as close to zero as we can. Some of our surrounding departments have the DLGF allows up to 150% of your budget in reserves if you're able. I know just north of us, they're carrying about a $10 million surplus, $10 million reserve with about a $12 to $14 million budget. We're not doing that here. We're trying to make sure that we're allocating our funds appropriately. We're spending them as needed and not trying to carry an excessive reserve. There are comforts in that, but there's also perceived waste in that as well. With that said, these units, just on their lease payments alone, the ladders are going to approach around $600,000 plus on their lease payments. The engines, they're going to approach about $350,000 in their lease payments. That puts us about $950,000 plus a year in lease payments once they're all ordered and come in and this comes to fruition. And that'll be stair-stepped over a couple of years, and then it'll stair-step off at the end. But in the meantime, we still have facilities that need remodeling, and we didn't allocate enough money toward that capital improvement project. $450,000 to go to Jack and Jill bathrooms and modernize our bunk rooms. Not going to make it happen on today's dollars. Whenever we look at some of the stations I talked to you about, like 142s, it needs more than a remodel. We're going to get engineers and architects in there, and Chief is working on that right now. The HVAC system is in the slab, and we have water that gets into that system. We have a hard deck first floor, and we get water in there, and we've had mold problems, and constantly open that up to repair and then have to pay for it to be patched. There's a lot more that needs to be looked at before we just allocate a few bucks to remodeling upstairs there. So again, this reestablishment of the fund is going to have an effect on us of about $53,000. That allows us to start thinking ahead and at least have some money at the end of the year in reserves to allow for these capital improvement projects outside of just the rigs alone. So we get a draw of just under $1 million a year from our CUME fund at its current rating, and we're going to spend that in lease payments on rigs. We also have Medic 143 that's needing, we're needing to look at buying it. It's $400,000. If I added that in, I would probably be over what I'm bringing in, or my other option is pay cash for it, or get into the operating fund to pay for it. None of that's wrong, but if I get in the operating fund to pay for capital projects and use money not what it's necessarily intended for, when I could max rate another fund over here, now I'm taken away from operations. And right now, we don't want to start delving into that realm, but the revamping of our different programs that we're looking at, and also the need for more people whenever lateral 144 comes in and we move the engine back to station 1, and we need to hire the people mid-year next year to staff. So with that said, you know, we're inheriting what's been a really valid attempt to stretch the life of our rigs. Whenever you look at an ambulance, they've been remounting the boxes on the chassis. Some of these remounts, whenever you look forward and look at the technology that's in the boxes now on an ambulance, the safety features and the engineering in them now makes them so much safer than what might have existed a few generations ago. So whenever we look at 15 years ago, remounting a box for potentially the third time, if that box is fine and it's on an updated frame and chassis, but I think one of them hit a third remount. They found a lot of structural issues. Those are made like a motorhome. They have a lot of wood in them. Whenever you look at the weather around here, and the salt and the hot and the cold, it takes its toll and things like that. And not to mention, we're kind of foregoing some of the safety features in the older models. So these boxes have upwards of 400,000 miles on them. Would that be appropriate to say? Okay. The boxes have about 400,000 miles on them going on to a brand new chassis. Not always the prudent thing to do. So eventually we're going to have to start investing. And that's what I want to prepare for here. I'm not asking to create a cash reserve. It's not the intent. We're not trying to hoard money. We're trying to make sure that we're prepared for the money we are allocating right now to the resources we need. You know, you got to look at our community. When I talked about back in 2005, what fire prevention used to look like versus what it looks like now, trying to get back to zero. We used to do runs down in 3,000 to 4,000 runs a year, just as soon as 2020 or before, and now we're up to 7,500 runs, and the community continues to grow. So again, what we used to get 10 years out of, we're getting 5 to 7 if we really push it. But again, we're putting a lot more wear and tear on our rigs a lot sooner. So that's why we're asking for this. That's why we want the CUME fund. The costs are going up. You know, we have needs right now. We have to plan for not only succession planning of our people, but also the planning of replacement of our apparatus and other hardware. So I appreciate you guys consider it. Again, we know we have your support on a lot of things. Now we're starting to ask for a tax increase here. Again, it's 0.13 cents. It's 1/1300th of a cent. So thank you.
This is all a conversation that we did have with Peters Financial. So he's aware that this is the route we're wanting to go. And he did support the idea of that moving into the future for us as well.
I just did some quick math here on that. We always talk, Jeff always talks about a $250,000 home as being the, a norm that he uses for discussion. If we apply that 0.0016 to that value, it's about $4 a year for that $250,000 or $250,000 house. So the financial impact to taxpayers is not extremely terrible given what it allows us to do.
And then I think we talked about the impact of the other taxing entities would be there would be a negative impact to it.
Yeah,
correct.
We do have the property tax caps, and so anytime we have an increase of tax, and we have as many residential properties that are already at their cap, that means if we're changing the shape or the size of the piece of pie that we're taking, the other taxing entities have to adjust the size of the piece of pie that they're getting based on the calculations that we came up with. I think for the school corporation, we're looking at a $31,000 to $37,000 impact for the school. I don't know what their total budget is, but that is the increase the decrease that this would have for the school corporation, again, based off of the numbers that we were able to come up with.
And what about the library?
I'm not sure. We didn't get down to that. Obviously, the school being the largest of the other entities, and as far as the taxes go, we knew that they would have the most significant impact against them.
And was this discussed with Dr. Wyndham
I have not had that opportunity.
as a board? Is that something we would like to discuss with the other taxing entities before we make this decision? So they're not blindsided?
I think that's been moved through the past. That would be
I just don't want to blindside somebody
Right.
with any sort of a hit. I would appreciate that if that came our way.
I think they would both agree that it's inconsequential in their total budgets, but I agree that it's kind of the relationship we built with them.
Right.
And I think we need to continue doing so.
No, I would agree.
I think.
Sure.
You have a May 31st deadline to pass this, and if you don't pass this by May 31st, you can try again next year.
Okay. Guess I wish we would have got this a little sooner.
We're a little late in the game because, well, we're putting our team together a little late in the game. So it's a
Okay.
lot of inheriting and reassuming, and these were last minute talks we had based on what was available to us.
So are there options for improving this outside of a meeting? Or we would have to call a meeting?
I don't believe so.
I think you'd have to have a quick special meeting. You have to table this specifically, and then come back on this when we have published notice. This is not one that's subject to the 2-day posted notice. It's one that we've run a 2-cycle, not sooner than 3 days before and not closer than 7 days apart notice. Then if you were to approve this today, tomorrow, with enough time. We also have to run what's called a notice of adoption. And that's a 1-cycle notice, but the uniqueness of your newspaper here is that if I'm good on, I'm not trying to make fun of
No, you're, I get it.
that if your business is ready to publish at 11:45 on Tuesday, you make the Thursday paper. And if your item is ready to publish at 2:15 on Tuesday, you go to the next Thursday's paper. So I was a little queasy about fitting everything in this month's meeting, and to Chief's comment, there's just a lot going on with the buildup. It came up kind of as an aside. And so the concern I have is, totally everything you're saying about, just the concern I have is the fit with the calendar, with getting the notice of adoption run. Because even after that, we have a 30-day remonstrance period for up to 25 taxpayers to go to the auditor. The state, the LGF will wink at it and will allow you to submit your proof of publication, your adopted resolution, and your published notice of adoption if they're all to them by the 31st. And then we can trail that with the certificate of no remonstrance from the auditor, presuming there is none. And to Steve's point, not a huge increase. I think it would be very unlikely to see remonstrance. So technically doable. It's getting close. And I think we all are at an age where we know the level of attendance and workflow that goes through Central Indiana in the final weeks of May, given all the activities that are occurring just east of us. So you can table this and just have a quickie meeting. We would need to announce right now when that session is. So anybody that was watching this knows we're going to be back just to address this item. And then you give the heads up to the library and the school, let me look at my calendar. Today's the 16th. Where's my calculator? If you met, frankly, I was foolishly optimistic that we could send a notice of adoption and maybe it might be too late to get it in the 18th. If you get this done by the morning of the 23rd, you can still submit a notice of adoption that's ready to run and go to the Republican on the 25th. And someone will have to literally get a physical copy of the paper and take the craft scissors and cut it out, because we will not have a notice of adoption proof of by then. But Fred, Mr. Van Dorp, at the DLGF will accept that in lieu of a proof of publication coming back. And that's, I don't know what to say.
So you're saying if we publish it on the 25th, we would meet after that? We would before that?
You would need before that, you would need to adopt in theoretically, hypothetically, before noon on the 23rd. Help submit the notice of adoption to the Republican before noon. It could be Monday, it could be this Friday. Submit that to them. By that time, they run it on the 25th. Someone would have to physically get a copy of the paper and cut it out. Then all this has to go to DLGF in a little packet before the 31st ends.
Well, from my perspective, and I'm sorry that it's creating extra work, but we have worked very hard to have a good relationship with the city corporation and the library. And I'm not going to do something behind their back. Honestly, it should have been brought to us a little bit sooner, and then we would have had a little extra time to make these conversations. But that's where I stand on it. Shane and Steve, you can have your opinions.
I agree that it's not going to be substantial, but it's just kind of a collaboration, and it's the way we've always done it. And I don't want to set that stage for that to go a different direction.
Right.
I think they would do the same to us, and I think particularly with other relationships in the area strained, I would say that it would be best to continue with what we've always done. So the earliest we could adopt would be.
Frankly, I don't think your notice was going to run until the 25th anyway. Your notice of adoption, just because unless somebody had already contacted Betty.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've got it ready to send, but obviously if we don't go through today, that won't happen. So,
but would she have run it for the 18th?
we gave her notice that we had the potential of a last minute addition.
Okay. I'll do anything I can to facilitate either way. I'm just counting days, and when you've got to bake in the different cycles, and DLGF is very down the line, you're alive the day of, and you're toast on June 1st. It can fit. And I'll help any of you do that.
I'll be out of town the next 3 days, but on New Year's Eve week.
Well, and we're gonna need some time for Ryan to set up some meetings with Dr. Wyndham and his CFO, as well as Laurel. And I'm happy to be in on any of those meetings, or if we want to split up.
So Monday we would take a pretty rapid.
If I may.
Yeah.
Based on some of these comments, this wasn't tried to be something on the radar.
No.
This wasn't any of that.
Yeah, that's not what we're saying, yeah.
There was a discussion made based on where we're at and the fact that this doesn't trend down anymore. I was educated by Mr. Bellamy, but then we met with Mr. Peters and we talked about some of our needs. All of this stuff kind of fit and just made sense. None of this happened until after our last township board meeting. It wasn't before, so I can look at it too.
Right.
What we can do, if it makes sense to everybody, is we can just rescind it, have these talks over the next year, and we'll just be a year behind the 8 ball with it. we'll do the best we can with what we've got. If it's gonna create that much uproar. If we've already got bad business elsewhere, we don't wanna create it in our other realms. That isn't my intent by any means.
Yeah, no, I'm not, and I guess that's not the concern. I think if we can have these discussions before Monday, it could still happen this year. I just don't want it to negatively impact any of those relationships.
Yeah, I don't either. If it makes it easier, we can remove it. We don't have to worry about being under the gun. Could we use the money? Absolutely. Is everything getting more expensive? Yes, but not at the expense of our other partnerships.
Right, our relationships with both of those entities are just, we're very forthcoming, and we're very open. I think this is doable. It's two conversations. So let's at least try, right? And then if it doesn't work out, and maybe one of them has something very negative to say about it, and then we might need to pause for a year.
Yeah, then I think it's,
Right.
if one were to say, hey, well, we need to have discussions, then I think what you're describing is probably the most prudent way to go forward with that. I just don't know I don't know how close they cut those kind of things.
Yeah,
So if it's $30,000 and this is gonna take away $30,000 that they had planned, I don't want to flip that the other direction on them. I'm sure they're not gonna get that close, but I don't know. I don't think we're not in those conversations.
I would think not.
Yeah.
And that's not to say everything that you're discussing, right, is of the utmost importance for public safety, right? So we understand the need.
Sure. I just don't want it to be perceived that we were trying to bring this in last minute to create a hardship.
Right.
It wasn't.
No.
It was one of those like, oh, wish we had more time.
I mean, it's the
right?
unfortunate reality. Everything's
Yeah.
costing more, and we need to prepare for that. Everything's costing crazy amounts more than it I believe it should, but I don't control that. So I just think when it's explained to them, they'll understand that. I feel better than, hey, we're in a meeting and we approve something, and then, hey, by the way, we approved this. It's taking something away, even if it's an insignificant amount, it's still a takeaway. I don't feel warm and fuzzy on that. It's just, that's kind of not what we've done before. So is that fair? Is that
I think we owe them that, even if it does cause us collectively a little inconvenience.
oh, sure, absolutely.
So I think we owe that to our relationship with those two entities.
So this also go from the 15 cent. Anything use there.
So then Chief Rock, you may just need to be available to hop into a meeting because you can obviously explain it with us. With the needs of the fire department and the pricing and where things are going.
Sure.
So Brian, can you work to set up those two meetings with Laurel and it would be Dr. Wyndham and then our CFO, Sheila Glass.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I guess just work with the three of us. Any of us are happy to be there just as a township board member liaison, just to show our support and answer questions, but
Steve, you said
ultimately.
you're out of town the next couple of days.
I'm leaving tomorrow, probably gone until Friday.
Amanda, you kind of already volunteered. If I can set something up, I don't know what Friday looks like for
I'm
you.
Good Friday.
I'll let you know if we can get something set up and we'll try to make that happen.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
and then we'll shoot for us to get that one.
Yeah, you need to announce that you're tabling this resolution to a specific time, date, place. I presume the place is set here. So I don't know.
And let's do Monday afternoon. That way, if somebody can't meet until Monday morning, that gives us at least another day on your Monday, Shane. That face doesn't look good.
No worse than normal.
Right.
Like 1:30,
118.
1:18, yeah. So 1:18, if it takes 2 minutes, give me drive time back. No, well, that would be awesome if it was 1:15 actually. 1:15 actually work a lot better.
115?
Yeah, then I can get back after 1:30.
This might be a 15-minute meeting. So
It should be 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
1:15, Monday the 22nd.
Monday, May, yeah.
Give or take 5 minutes.
I think we should do 1:18 just so we.
We'll do 1:15. Can you reflect that a minute? Okay, so we will table this subject, pending those discussions until 1:15 on Monday, May 22nd.
second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Okay, so next up is the resolution regarding, basically agreement with special deputies. Is that
Fire
right?
Chief and Bellamy are gonna get this one as well, so.
All right, what I would like to do for this one, understand that, I came in and one of the things I said in my swearing in was a happy yes. Nobody's taking advantage of that more, than Levi, our fire marshal. So with that said, I would like to bring Levi up here because, he has a lot of great ideas, but he can speak to this better than I can because it affects his authority and his ability to do the job.
And that is probably true. So in 2008, our division created a partnership with the Sheriff's Department under Sheriff Galloway, where he made us special deputies with his department so that we could get some further training. We were doing some of our own probable cause, search warrant stuff. It was to kind of make sure legally we were doing everything we could so we wouldn't get any cases thrown out. And so that continued on with Sheriff Galloway. As well as with Sheriff Clark. Obviously, Sheriff Sadler came in office in January, met him. And he said, we got anything in writing? You know, and we didn't. And so that's kind of where this resolution came from. So Mr. Bellamy's helped us a lot in kind of putting this together and making sure that we're just kind of basically doing everything to protect both entities. So,
For the public that's listening, can you describe what it is?
So basically, essentially what this allows us is that the two staff investigators, so myself and Tom, become special deputies with the Sheriff's Department, only involving arson and explosion investigation. So basically it allows us to do the same things that we've been doing as far as writing search warrants, assisting with probable cause. It allows us to share information that's law enforcement sensitive that we may not be able to with other cases and things like that. So essentially it's just giving us that power, and this is just kind of documenting, I guess, for both entities thing.
So this makes it official, basically.
Yeah, it's something that we've been doing. We just haven't had anything formal in writing to protect kind of both entities.
And that's kind of been a concern. Just a few things as we uncover things as Chief comes in. Certain things can be informal. When you say the informal deputy process, that makes your attorney nauseous. Because a lot of different things. You get some really good defense attorneys that start picking at things and say, why exactly, were you there? And then it starts to, you're not a deputy. The reason primarily I wanted this with you is if it's not an interlocal, it's awfully close, and it might just be over. There's no exchange of any funds. The special deputies, though they are specially deputized, do not serve the sheriff. They serve your chief, and so they will not be called out to go to Clayton or North Salem or whatever. If they are involved in anything, it's because of mutual aid. There is a shared indemnity waiver, and it's boiler because I talked to his attorney and there was nothing. They are developing the first one, and they were kind of asking the same questions from their side as we were. They didn't have anything in terms of who was going to be special deputies, how they were issuing them, who would be responsible back and forth. So because particularly of the indemnification language going back and forth, that the sheriff is not going to be responsible for our special deputies, and we're not going to be responsible for the sheriff's indemnification. I thought you ought to see it.
Yeah.
I thought you guys ought to know about it.
Yeah.
And again, kind of weaving in the last two topics works a lot better when everyone's kind of communicating back and forth. So that's my recommendation. I'd be belt and suspenders, but I'd rather have belt and suspenders than the alternative. So.
I agree.
And just for your, I had no idea. So I've been here 4.5 years. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
I enjoy learning these things too, but I also like having.
Yeah, the partnership has helped our division tremendously as far as allowing us access to training with ATF and some other stuff that's all been law enforcement driven. We've been able to go to some of the things that we wouldn't be allowed to without those credentials. So it has been a benefit for us for sure.
I will say we're the first time in the county to have the agreement if this passes. And, it is the formality of things versus, just doing what we've always done.
Sure, so that's great.
I think this also speaks to kind of what we're talking about the school and the library, just having a great relationship with the sheriff's office and the Avon police. I mean, these are wonderful things, collaboration and working together, and this spells it out, which is from a legal standpoint, makes me happy too.
Okay. I move we adopt resolution 051623-03, authorizing the trustee to enter agreement concerning special deputies.
We need to change that to 02. If we didn't do this one. Change
Yeah,
it.
because then
Yeah, I guess it would be 02.
that one would move to the other table.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, last one up is resolution 051623-03, resolution of the Township Board of Washington Township, Henderson County, Indiana, adopting a parking policy for township parking.
You signed it in
I can reprint it.
We might need a new one.
Yeah, we just,
We might sign it underneath them.
and then she signed it afterwards, so be fair.
I'll go ahead and reprint
Follow the
that.
leader.
We'll get that signed.
We'll get another one.
We need a fresh page.
All right.
Just the signature page.
Just the signature
Just-
page, please.
Yeah.
I was like, are there 2 lines? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So parking policy for township parks.
I had asked Jeff to create this document for us. This gives us the ability to tow vehicles that are parked in our parks past, I believe it was 48 hours. We already have it on signs. We have it all over the place. We have a few neighbors who are taking advantage of our park and parking their work vehicles overnight in our parking lots. One of our parking lots is the Paul Park, which is not gated off. So this gives us the ability to work with the tow company to be able to tow those vehicles after a certain amount of time at owner's expense.
Yeah, I first read this and I said, well, this is the kind of resolution that unless we had an issue, didn't need to exist. So we do. Okay. So everything is already signed,
Thank you.
signs posted.
Yep.
So they're ignoring those.
Waiting for the legal side of that.
We since they cease and desist first. It's been about 6 months probably.
Okay.
But I would text her or email her. I'd be driving back and forth and the vehicle would be there. I mean, we could just be watching it head.
It's been there so long,
Vegetation
it's on
growing.
Google. If you search the
Yeah.
park on Google Maps, it's there.
It's on the Google Maps.
One of the vehicles
The
had
same
not
offender.
Yeah, no, one of the vehicles had not moved in so long, the plates were expired and the bush was growing around it.
Okay. Well, if it's not properly tagged according to resolution, you can tag it today.
I will make a motion to approve resolution number 051623-03, correct?
Yes.
Establishing a parking policy for township parks.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Make sure you sign it from the left column, not the right column. Wow. Okay. Any other public comment or wishes to be heard? All right, if we just a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are
4:10.
at 4:10.